I'd never seen Jake Paul fight before, but I knew that he was the brother of Logan Paul, obviously. And I knew who Logan Paul was simply because of the fight that he had with KSI. Anesongib, however, I'd never even heard of him before this fight was made. Now, it's a fight between two novices. It is what it is. But there was a clear gulf in ability, technique between these two. Jake Paul, to me, from a technical point of view, for a novice, he actually looks quite good. I'm not going to lie to you. It looks quite good for a novice. And even though this was his first quote unquote professional fight, he looked like he'd just been around boxing and practiced boxing, for lack of a better term, far more than Anesongib, who looked as raw as they could possibly come. So Anesongib came in there with, I don't know what you'd call it, a horrendous impression of Mike Tyson or something, trying to get close to Jake Paul. And Jake Paul did what he's supposed to do, used his advantages, kept it long, and walked Anesongib onto punches. Quite decent technique. Obviously, he's fighting somebody who's also a novice and who's many, many levels below him athletically and technique-wise. But nonetheless, he looked a lot better to me than his brother, Logan Paul, truth be told. So he hit Anesongib with a few shots. Gib went down several times. I think the first couple of knockdowns were more balanced rather than Gib being hurt. But the third knockdown, he was hit with some shots, leading up to that, which did appear to genuinely hurt him and wobble him. And you see, the thing is with novices is nerves play such a big part when you've got a couple of novices going in there. When somebody's having their first amateur fight or one of their first few amateur fights, they're so nervous that their knees can literally be shaking. And they can get hit with shots in, their first couple amateur bouts, which rock them, which, have their legs wobbly. But yet when you were supervising them, sparring in the gym, they were fine taking the shots. But the nerves just overcome them and they're just way more jittery in the ring and the punches have a lot more effect on them. So I think there was an element of that there for Anesongib. And one of the things that is good about these YouTuber fights is that it does inspire people to want to give it a go, because not everybody is in this boxing community like most of us are. They might be following people on Instagram. They might be following these social media personalities, and they look at a Jake Paul or a Logan Paul or a KSI and they think, okay, they were just average people. They weren't, trained athletes or anything like that. They hadn't been boxing since they were little kids, but they wanted to give it a go and they did. And so I think it's great for that reason. I think it's another way of getting different types of people, different demographics into boxing. Yeah, it may not be a Tyson Fury or an Anthony Joshua or a Deontay Wilder who inspires somebody to box. It might be a Jake Paul, and that's all good. Whoever inspires them to try and give it a go, it's all good as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, now they're talking about making Jake Paul versus KSI. And again, I'm not going to lie. I thought that the KSI Logan Paul fight was very entertaining. In fact, it was the most entertaining fight on that particular card. More entertaining than any of the undercard fights, which involved actual proper boxers. So KSI versus Jake Paul, hell yes. I'll be tuning in. I think it'll be a very entertaining scrap. KSI, although he's very crude, he's strong. And for a novice of this type of level, he clearly hits hard. I mean, he managed to hurt Logan Paul, even though Logan Paul hurt him too. And there was some very questionable behavior by the official, the referee in that fight. Nonetheless, I think that KSI would be much more of a handful for Logan Paul than Anesongib was. And I noticed that Jake Paul as well is not as big as his brother. What's his name now? Logan Paul. Yeah, he's not as big as his brother, not as tall, not as thick set, but does appear to have better technique, better coordination and all that kind of stuff. And maybe he's more mean as well than Logan Paul is. So we'll see how KSI manages to get along with that if indeed they do fight. I think it's inevitable that they'll fight. I just think there's going to be too much money involved. There's going to be KSI fighting for the honor of his team, of his camp. You know, it's basically like the American YouTubers, the king of the American YouTubers versus the king of the British YouTubers. That's what it appears to be. And yeah, I think that the money and the pride is going to be too much, and KSI is going to go ahead and do that fight. Although there was some talk in the ring afterwards about who the A side was and all this theatricality. Look, I'm sure they'll have to get it done and put it. Well, it may be headlining. I was going to say put it on an undercard somewhere like this fight was, but I personally think that'll probably have to be a main event. Yeah. Should it be a main event? I mean, I saw, who was it now? I think it was Lou DiBella talking about these YouTube fights. And he said that if you're going to have a YouTube fight as a main event, then make it a YouTube card. Don't have any professional boxers on there. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that? Personally, I think that I can see the arguments on both sides. Okay. But if you get your young fighters like your, Nikita Ababis and people like that, your young fighters, and you put them in the right fights where they're basically going to blow somebody out. You don't put them in real tough competitive fights. You don't want to do that because you have to understand that the crowd who are tuning in is not a normal boxing crowd. If you've got Jake Paul versus KSI on your boxing show, you're going to draw a lot of those kind of casual YouTube KSI, Jake Paul fans in. They don't want to see somebody be technical for 12 rounds. They don't want to see that. They want to see spectacular knockouts, showboating and all this kind of, that's what they want to see. If you're going to sell professional boxing to them, you have to give them something spectacular, a show. Put your professionals maybe in exhibitions. Yeah, that's what you need to actually do. Worry about proper fights on a different show with a more boxing, related audience. So the point I'm making is I don't think it's a bad thing to have professional boxers on the same show, even on the undercard of, let's say, a KSI versus Jake Paul. I just think you have to put them in the right fights, put them in mismatches, basically. Put them in fights where they can just blow somebody's flipping head off with a right hand. You know what I mean? And that will appease the casuals in attendance who are all just used to watching YouTubers. They're not used to watching professional boxers that much. They'll be impressed, I'm telling you. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about this one and the possibility of Jake Paul versus KSI. It's happening, I'm out.